conservative men are obsessed with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's young, dynamic, strong, and incredibly effective in pushing for the economic and environmental values that resonate with most Americans. Ironically, each time a conservative attacks her, she just becomes more popular. And every once in a while, progressives are gifted with pure comedy gold, like the AOC attack video you're about to watch.
The brains behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Mr. Reagan.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not really the Congresswoman of New York's 14th Congressional District. She is essentially an actress. She's merely playing the part of a New York Congresswoman.
Damn, you know someone is about to say something extremely compelling when he presents his findings like Family Guy's Trisha Takanawa.
And there you have it, Channel 5 News audience. This has been Trisha Takanawa with my undercover expose of Pawtucket Patriot Brewery. Up next is Papa John dyeing his eyebrows. I sleep with him to find out, though I'm fairly confident the answer is yes.
Okay, so who is this beauty-marked, sinister-toned rando attacking AOC as being an actress? Well, he runs a YouTube channel called Mr. Reagan, which is dedicated to the former president and literal actor Ronald Reagan. At first, I thought his channel was a joke. I gotta be honest with you, because any sane person would watch it and understand why I would think that it's a joke.
Why is Jordan Peterson popular? Are gay people really born that way? Whites are the least racist people on the planet. The philosophy behind the Second Amendment. Republicans don't hate immigrants. Why are so many young people Democrats? Have you ever met a racist?
Wow, what the hell was that? The guy must really love the way he looks because he's taking the tight shots to new extremes. Okay, let's try to get past the funny way this guy talks and try to understand what his beef is with AOC. Actually, we know what his beef is. He's a conservative who absolutely hates what AOC has been successfully drawing attention to, and that's economic injustices that help the rich elite get richer while the middle class and the working class continue to get squeezed. We finally have a lawmaker who's looking out for our best interests. But since he can't debate her based on policies or facts, he'd rather try this hilarious attempt to smear her with make-believe conspiracies. So let's hear his arguments one by one and dunk on him. I mean, respond to them.
I know this sounds crazy, but bear with me.
Okay, I'll try, but yes, you sound crazy. Keep going.
In 2017, a group called the Justice Democrats held auditions for potential congressional candidates that they would run on their platform for various congressional seats throughout the country. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's brother Gabriel submitted her for the role. Now, I've auditioned for many acting roles in my day. I've also cast many of my own projects. I know how this works. If you find somebody with star power, even if they don't 100% fit the part, you go with it. Obviously, AOC has star power. Just look at her. She's a superstar, the most famous person in Congress, maybe ever. Their casting was perfect.
Obviously, AOC has star power. Okay, this is Mr. Reagan's central thesis, and I'm actually making him sound way smarter than he really is by describing it that way. Much like the conservatives' conspiracies regarding the Parkland students who became politically active after they witnessed their peers get gunned down in a mass shooting, right-wingers are trying to paint AOC as a paid plant or a trained actress. It's their way of trying to get everyone on their side to believe real people couldn't possibly be passionate about reforming a rigged economic system in America. This is also a funny conspiracy when you consider that most of the prominent talking heads on the Republican side are literally paid to push the nonsense that they do. Do I have to get into Dave Rubin again? You know, the grifter who keeps on grifting? So anyway, what evidence does this guy present to make his case?
Now, I didn't have to go digging for evidence for this, because they freely admit it. They brag about it.
Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant then. And I was like, there's no way.
A casting call. They had a casting call. They cast Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the role of Congresswoman.
Okay, so if they freely talk about it in open forums, it's not much of a conspiracy, right? The whole point of the Justice Democrats was to find real people, not corporate elites, who have an interest in representing Americans, real Americans, rather than corporate interests. You can call it a casting call all you want, but encouraging everyday Americans to run for office is what a democratic process is supposed to be about.
Alexandria did not take it upon herself to run for Congress. She was used by this group, the Justice Democrats, as a figurehead through which they could gain control of New York's 14th Congressional District House seat. These guys not only scripted and produced AOC's beautiful campaign video, but they organized the entire grassroots campaign effort. They handled all the fundraising, the social media, the get out the vote effort. They turned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into a brand, and they used that brand to take control of that House seat.
Oh, so she had a congressional campaign staff like every other politician who's ever run for office. Okay, did he think that people run for office by themselves without a team? Should we start a riot over the fact that the president has speechwriters? Also, you can make anything sound sinister when you talk like that. Anna Kasparian loves her dog Charlie. I know this because she openly talks about it on her show. So far, this attempt to smear AOC is laughably weak, but let's hear what else he has to say. Other evidence this guy uses to make his point is that AOC uses the same statistics regarding wealth and income inequality as one of her top advisors, Corbin Trent.
People that make $19,999 a year or less. So people that make $20,000 a year or less make up right around 40% of Americans, right? So it's
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
Yeah.
200 million Americans make less than $20,000 a year. That's 40% of this country.
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
That's 40% of this country.
These guys are coaching her. They're scripting everything she says.
Or maybe they're just sharing the same factual statistic that you can look up yourself to prove is accurate. That was like finding two people who say the sky is blue and then accusing them of some sort of unlawful collusion. The stats shared by AOC and her team are widely talked about and accurate. In fact, the Social Security Administration released wage statistics in 2014 that aren't that difficult to find. The numbers show that more than 38% of Americans were making less than $20,000 a year. Yeah, there's no voodoo here. There are nothing more than government facts and figures that a couple people have alluded to when making their arguments. Ironically, the economic desperation reflected in those numbers happened to be the reason why so many Americans trusted Trump and his populist Make America Great Again messaging. He was all about draining the swamp and bringing jobs back to the United States. This shows how the right wing will exploit the realities of economic injustice when they're trying to get elected. But once they're elected, they'll continue looking out for their rich goons and pretend as though the economy is fantastic. By the way, if you happen to be a conservative who works in the food service industry, here's what people like Mr. Reagan think about you.
Old interviews show that the Justice Democrats initially declared that they wanted candidates of substance. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a bartender. Now, who is more useful to an evil organization trying to take over Congress? A principled politician who happens to align with their views, or a pawn, a malleable innocent who they can manipulate, somebody completely ignorant of politics who must rely wholly on them to direct all her political positions?
Oh, so if you work in the food service industry, you're definitely ignorant on politics, according to this guy. Is he saying that bartenders can't be people of substance or know anything about politics? How elitist was that? AOC's chief of staff, Shoykat Chakrabarti, responded to the jabs toward the food service industry by tweeting, "The right wing actually cannot believe that a working class Latina like AOC is smart, talented, and capable. They are creating entire conspiracy theories to try to disprove her intelligence." Oh, and speaking of AOC's chief of staff, he was targeted in this hilarious video too.
This guy doesn't really have the charisma to run for office himself. He's a little awkward. He might have Asperger's or something like that. He kind of reminds me of Daniel Radcliffe, actually. But don't let his disarming awkwardness fool you. He's been an extremely effective political operative.
Apparently, all you have to do to fearmonger about a particular person to conservatives is say idiotic things like, he might have Asperger's, or he reminds me of Daniel Radcliffe, and he's very dangerous. Any sane person who watched that would laugh, and I certainly did. But let's not, ignore all of this. Let's get to the best part of his entire argument.
The mastermind behind it all, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks.
No way.
May all sound completely nuts like a big conspiracy theory, but the Justice Democrats was heavily promoted on the Young Turks. We have video evidence from the inception through into the campaigns.
I think they have maxed out on incompetence. So that is why we must choose a new path. And that is what we embark upon today. What we need to do is take over the Democratic Party. And as Martin Luther King said when he did the Civil Rights Movement, he said he was doing it not just to help African Americans, but to save the soul of America. Here we're going to try to save the soul of the Democratic Party.
Whoa, got him. I don't know if Mr. Reagan knows this, but top secret and evil conspiracies aren't broadcasted on the largest online news show in the world. Obviously, I work with Cenk, and none of this was a big secret, especially when you consider that he literally created a daily 30-minute show to interview and promote Justice Democrats prior to the primaries. TYT calls itself home of progressives. I'd argue that the political leanings that we have are rather transparent. Mr. Reagan, though, has more to his argument.
Ilhan Omar has said it's quite inappropriate for groups to decide on whether or not somebody deserves to represent their district.
Well, Representative Omar was right, and it's the people of any given district who should decide the best member of Congress to represent them, which is why AOC demonstrated a stunning upset against the Democratic incumbent, Joe Crowley, beating him with 57.5% of the vote. This guy acts like some highly funded progressive group went against the will of the people and just undemocratically inserted a puppet in a congressional district. But AOC took absolutely no corporate PAC money, ran a grassroots campaign by knocking door to door to talk to people in her district, and continues to fight for the values people supported her for. She's operating within a corrupt political system without big donors, meaning she's the exact opposite of a puppet. That's the real reason she's been popular, because she's genuine in understanding the concerns of the middle and working class. It is funny, though, how a tech-savvy and intelligent woman like AOC, who refused to be influenced by corporate donors, is being smeared as a puppet. Maybe Mr. Reagan should focus on the insane amount of money in politics and how much that influences politicians. Isn't it more outrageous that our lawmakers are legally bribed by pharmaceutical companies and the fossil fuel industry? No? We're just gonna call AOC a stupid bartender and move on? Okay then. And it was particularly rich to see Sean Hannity promote this ridiculous conspiracy theory. Hannity campaigned for Donald Trump. He even used Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, and he's essentially front and center of Trump-sponsored media. Even Florida Representative Matt Gaetz admitted that Hannity and Trump brainstorm on the daily, like they literally call each other every single day.
I've been born witness to interactions where they have exchanges and robust discussions and they bounce ideas off of each other. I think it's good that we have a president that bounces ideas off of a lot of different people. He's not just stuck in the cocoon of the West Wing.
Yeah, he's just stuck in the cocoon of his own ass. As always, the right wing illustrates projection by accusing the other side of engaging in the corrupt and destructive games that they've been playing for decades. And you know what? We're not buying it. But in the very least, that comical video was something that brought laughter and true entertainment to my heart. Oh, did you like that video? Well, that's great, because you never have to miss another episode of No Filter. All you have to do is just hit the subscribe button below and ring the bell to get notified whenever we publish a new video.